going to go over installation of the 60 horsepower. It does have a trim gauge sensor. That's the real big difference. The cables are hooked up differently on this motor. So the first thing you want to do, remove, this is the steering, it keeps the steering from moving and shipping. So you just remove this bolt. I've got them loosened already. Just remove this bolt, this nut, and then this nut right here. And I'll show you how to put those on in a minute once we get to that part. So next I'll remove this piece that holds the cables in. So the first thing we'll do is we'll remove this piece right here on the motor. And then we should start with the control box. So we'll just take this piece off, and then you can see where the connections are. This is the connection for the throttle right here. And this is that's the connection in there for the shift. And I'll show you how those go. So once you have that plate off, this is where the shift cable is going to go in this side and the throttle cable is going to go in this side. The clip for the throttle cable is different than the 40. It clips right here, and then you still need to put that piece in there. So this is the bag of parts that comes with the control box, similar to the 40 horsepower. This bag right here. You have the side mount control box with key, 10-pin plug. So this plate right here is the plate that we need to take off. This plate right here, this bolt, this nut, and this nut. So we got to be careful not to break this little plastic thing. This is the thing that protects the power trim. Pull this plate off of here. So this exposes the cables where we make the connection here. So this is your throttle cable. This is your shift cable. So I'll go ahead and put those on with the clips, and then I'll show you how these little C-clips, the little C-clips in this bag, clip the cables on. These are universal cables, so the ends just screw on here, and you can make an adjustment to them. So in this bag will be the bigger ones are the connection to the motor, and the smaller ones are the connection to the control box. Basically, these cables are universal either side. You just pull this little keeper piece off the end of the plug, and what I like to do is set these about halfway. So your screw is your screw here is about halfway. So it just screws on here like this. You get that about halfway, and then you can tighten that nut. You see how the nut is backed off, so you just want to put this about halfway. You can adjust it after if you need to adjust your throttle. The cables will attach. If you were doing your motor, obviously you run the cables through. You can connect them to the box and to the motor after you have them run through your boat where you want them. This is the power trim wire. That's what that little plastic piece is for. So you can put this one underneath. Slides into this groove right here, and then we put the C-clip on the cable. You can see that clip just slides in there, and then you're in that groove. And so next, there's a little piece that was in that bag. This piece is like a separator to separate the two cables. That goes in between the cables. So that slides down in there. And then the next cable goes on top. So you can slide your trim switch in between the two cables or above the two cables. We'll just leave it above the two cables, and then we'll actually, I think maybe we should put the cable on the top. So I think that's what we did before. So we'll put this cable. This is your throttle cable. Turn that over. You can slide these little rubber protector pieces up. I'm gonna turn this cable. So I basically had to turn this around because I had it backwards. And then this just clamps in there. You can see that the power trim cable can just sit in there like that, just so it's out of the way and not connected to anything. You can push these pieces back. These little rubber pieces are supposed to be pushed back all the way. And then that just sits in there like that. And then I'll put the cap back on. And that pretty much completes connecting the cables to the control box. When you put the cap back on, this cap piece, make sure that plastic piece kind of sits in there. It's got to catch that piece. Two little grooves on here, and if you slide that in, it just kind of sits on there and holds them in place. And then you just tighten your 2 screws down, and that's complete for the control box. Just go back and forth with the control box and make sure the cables move. No deal. And then we'll attach it to the motor. So now we'll connect the ends, the ends that go into the motor end to the cable. The shift cable is the one that's closest to the edge of the boat. I'll set it halfway again. Obviously, we may need to make adjustments, you know, depending on the throw and where we end up, and actually how you want your shift to be. So there's a rubber piece on the motor that's on the front of the motor. I don't know if you can see that here. You just pull that out. Your cable goes into that piece. Your cable goes through there, and you can just slide this in. Obviously, you gotta put your. So this is your shift cable here. It goes through that thing, and then has the little metal piece on it. Then it connects to that bar right there, and then this little pin right here will go through and hold it. And I'll just pin that now. So now we'll make the connection for the throttle. So your throttle cable sits into this. If you can see it on the screen here, it sits into this part where my hand is, and it clips on there. It runs through the metal plate and through the other little the little rubber that goes through there, and then you clip this up right here, and that holds your throttle in place. And then your throttle connects, because I got it. I don't know if you can see that on the video. And then you'll just put the other cotter pin. The other pin goes in here. That just slides in there, simple. So then you're connected. So now we're going to install the control cable. It's on the side of the box. It's the 10-pin plug. There's a rubber knockout for the 10-pin cable, and I'll show you that close up of that. This is the end of the control cable. So you feed it through this rubber knockout right here. There's a slot, a bigger slot for the 10-pin plug, and then there's a smaller slot for the cable that for the trim gauge cable. This is the connection, the control cable that has to snap in like that, and then this runs through that knockout right there and just sits down inside the cowling. I just have to make sure all the wires sit down in the cowling. And then this connection right here, this little triangular type connection, this is for your trim gauge, which is a separate connection on the 60. The 40 doesn't have a trim gauge. So I'll show you. So these two boxes right here, and then this wire right here with the two male and female ends on them. This is for your trim gauge. So we'll plug that in. It'll run through the little spot on the rubber knockout. So this is the trim gauge right here. Comes in. You can push it underneath here. You can put a little more slack on this if you want to maneuver this around wherever it wants to sit best inside the cowl. Probably something like that is fine, just as long as everything tucks in okay. Rubber piece has to sit in and hold those two pieces down just like that, and then I'll put the plate on. So I'll do that. And everything's sitting in here, come through the knockout. Everything's set up. So the next thing we're going to do is install the steering rod. So in the bag with the parts to connect your controller to the side rails, the controller just bolts through. There's 3 bolts. These 3 bolts connect your control box to wherever you're going to mount it on your boat. And then there's these 2 lock washers inside this bag. So 2 washers, 2 nuts, and this is your steering arm. It's mounted right on here. So then your standard steering cable will come through the motor through this way, and you'll make the connection right here to the other side. I'll show you. So the cable will come through here, come out this side, and you'll make a connection right here. This just has to be tightened up on here. I just did a little mock-up on there. And then that's connecting your steering cable. The other thing is that when your steering cable comes through, you'll have this is like a grease holder, little pin, and there's a little rubber that comes in that other package. And you screw this on here, and that just kind of holds the grease in. Some people don't even put those on there. And that shows you how to make the connections, how everything sits down in there. You get your shift cable, your throttle cable, your steering arm. Oh, nope, I'm not done. So then we have to show you how to connect your gauges. So this is your gauge wire. This is the wire that connects the gauges, the tack gauge, which has your hour meter on it, and then it has other stuff to connect to your dash if you need to run power back to your dash to get from the key start to the power. And I will show you how to do that. You connect to this pin. You have this connection right here. Hopefully you can see that. And then I'll make that connection. Here's your control box right here. You have basically, you pull this little plug off that holds the ends, and you'll connect the three wires that come off this side of the cable. You'll just make the connection, obviously green to green, yellow to yellow, and then these things push over to make a watertight seal. You push the top one down, bottom one up. You just push those together like that, and they make a watertight seal. Pretty self-explanatory. Then we have the other end of this gauge. This is your tack right here. So this tack has the installation manual and the owner's manual on it. Tells you the details about the tack. So when you get the tack, it has a little connection right here, and this just plugs into that connection, and it has like a watertight seal on it. Obviously, you're going to connect this to the knockout in your dash where you want to set your tack, and then you'll run this through and run the wire to it. But I'll just show you a little mock-up of how this goes together. So this little wire just plugs into the back there, and then you have 4 wires coming off of your tack. So those 4 wires will connect to these 4 here. So we have basically we have an extra black, an extra yellow, and an extra black, extra yellow, and 1 extra blue. So the yellows are key power. So you have 1 key power that's powering up the tack. So we'll connect that yellow first. So it's basically the same as the other way. You just push these together. Then you have the watertight seal on it from top to bottom. Connect this to black. There we have the connections. And then you'll be left with these 3. This is a power, this is a ground, and this is light. And then also on this is another power and another light connection in case you need to add more to other places or areas of the boat. So this will power your tack. So then I need to show you that's in the separate box. This is very simple. The trim gauge just comes in the box, and you can just screw this anywhere where you have your trim. If you have an existing trim on your dash, you just take that one off and put this one on. Then you have the manual. And this one plugs in the same way. Similar. It's just got a different plug in. So it plugs in here. Obviously, you put it through your dash, and then you want to plug it in. It's got a little rubber piece on there to keep stuff out. So then you will connect this to your trim gauge. the other end of your trim gauge, which is coming off the motor right here. And then these three will connect to the other three. Additional power, additional light power, and then there's a fuse on the end of this too that can be replaced. So that pretty much handles plugging in your gauges.